Good evening, family, and welcome to the podcast In the Black of My Mind. I'm your host, Al Thomas. So just settle in and enjoy the ride with us. I got you. This is our second podcast, and we're blessed to have this good brother grace us with his presence this evening. Our guest today is the hardest working poet in show business. He's not only a prolific poet, he's an author with a number of books under his belt. He's an artist, an incredible painter, a teacher, a sculptor with some very serious works. And as Jay-Z said, he's not just a businessman, he's a business man. Please allow me to introduce my brother, Iyaba Ibo Mandingo.
Peace, brother Al. How are you, man?
Wonderful,
wonderful being with you, man. Thanks for having me, brother. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to chopping it up, man.
Man, it's an honor and a privilege, bro. Trust. Welcome to the podcast, good brother.
Absolute.
I should have added fashion icon.
Yeah.
I've been checking the drip, bro.
We're getting there, man.
Brother been working out, eating right. I was like, okay, you're gonna force me to step my game up, man.
Yeah, well, you know, from being on that stage, man, a lot of cats don't realize, especially if you were an athlete. I had to get to this point where I admitted to myself that this was like my second athletic career, because especially that theater.
Oh, no doubt.
You get up there and they got you running from stage left to stage right full speed, and then you got to come in and drop 5 minutes worth of lines. Man, your lungs will fall out if you don't.
Oh, exactly.
The first time I hit me, I was like, okay, back to the gym we go. So that was like the start of it, So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I sat on my behind for basically the whole pandemic and stuff. I just got back in the gym like the beginning of this month.
Okay.
Man, I wore out the couch in my family room and stuff. For real, man. Leather couch over there, man. I haven't been doing nothing, man.
Well, pandemic for me was awesome because I stayed in the studio. So I guess that's
right.
It's like a different version, a different section of the house. But I stayed in there, man. I easily over 300 major works, which is a really big, really
wow.
Really beautiful. Really amazing, wonderful focused time. You know what I'm saying? And not to mention a new play, a new compilation of writing, essays, short stories, poems, and prose that I'm going to be putting out in a couple of months, called Season Rice.
Wow.
Yeah. And a children's book.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So it just was one of them. Felt like Mother Nature was sending us up to our room because we was being bad. Get up in your room and think about what you did, young man. That kind of way. So I went and thought about what I did, and I came down with an answer. When you came down from the room, you were supposed to be able to break down why you got sent up to your room. So,
right.
Yeah. So.
I've been checking you out on the social medias and stuff, man, and I've been looking at your artwork and stuff, and not that your artwork wasn't already the bomb, but I mean you've definitely taken it to another level and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
A whole new level.
I can't even how our people, our ancestors are amazing, man, and I think the beginning of I guess the word would be enlightenment or clarity for us, especially Black creatives, is realizing that you are this continuum, and there's a 999 million% chance that the reason the things you indulge in them because it was somebody in your bloodstream that had to be a farmer or clean somebody's toilets or somebody janitor, and they couldn't do the thing that they probably buried, and it made them miserable sometimes. And so of course now that they see one of their descendants in a time when we could say we're things, I get to walk around and look people right in their face and say, yeah, I'm an artist. I'm a poet. I'm a painter. It's not my side job. It's not my hobby.
No,
this is how I pay my bills. Yeah, this is what I do every day, and I know that, my grandfather had to pass away for me to be going through his papers with my rest of my cousins to realize that the man was a sculptor who became a tailor because being a tailor made sense in 1950s Caribbean with 7 kids. You know what I'm saying? So,
right.
That kind of stuff is inspiring, man. Yeah.
So where you come from, man?
Well, you ask somebody like me that question, I'm going to tell you the west coast of Africa. But where I was born is I was born in Antigua in the Caribbean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This year makes 44 years I've been here.
in the States?
in America. Yeah, I
Okay.
came up here. I was 11 years old, 1980, September 16th.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you remember the date and everything.
Oh yeah, man. It's
Significant. Huh?
10 days after my 11th birthday.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, and my grandfather was my sun, moon, and stars. So I was leaving him.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
That's deep.
yeah. That was heavy for me.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Yeah, I took me probably 2 decades to get over that separation.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
So how did you find America as opposed to Antigua?
Well, at first I loved it, because as a kid in the Caribbean and probably in most of the rest of the third world, you're talking, 70s and 80s is when America propaganda was just like being pushed heaviest. Now I can look back at it as a historian and see it that way. But when I was a kid, you know, I remember the year my uncle sent my cousin a gun belt with the chaps.
Mm.
You know what I'm
Mm-hmm,
saying,
mm-hmm,
bro?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Kids came from neighborhoods away to see that, man. Because I was
Wow.
there, and I was the dude that could make, you can get the pop gun from the store from, right in Antigua, and then
Mm-hmm.
you come to my house, my grandmother's house, and I would make you out of cardboard. I would make you the holster to put it in that you could connect to your belt. So most
Wow.
of us had that. So when my cousins show up with the pleather, the white pleather joint with the white frills coming off and the white chaps,
Mm-hmm,
looking like Roy Rogers, man, kids were showing up from all over. So and there's no cowboys in Antigua nowhere. So that was like that's it. That's the top line of what you wanted to emulate as a little black boy in the Caribbean was American cowboy. So that America came to me long before I came here. I
Okay.
remember at
Right.
my grandmother's funeral was the first time I had Kentucky Fried Chicken. Why? Because how do I remember that? Because Uncle Mari came home and he went to Kentucky Fried Chicken and bought two big buckets of chicken, and that was the first time we ever had that. That was 1978.
Wow.
So it was in 24 months I was here.
Right. Right. Right.
So it was the so we came here I wanted to see snow
Mm.
because we didn't, I never saw it like
Oh, I'm sure.
the spider webs that they use here for Halloween.
Oh, right. 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 Right.
They
Right.
they 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 repackage those and sell those as fake snow in the Caribbean. You put that on the tree. So
Wow.
seeing snow for the first time, it took me years before I got enough of America, especially winter.
Wow. Oh yeah, man.
But
Please.
bro, please, man, frostbite and all that. I mean, frozen toes and fingers. We stayed outside and dug tunnels. All the
Oh
stuff we
yeah.
saw on TV as kids, we
Yeah.
emulated. So I loved it. The first 20 years, I was as close to being an American boy, I guess, as you could say, until I went off to Iowa and got a white girl pregnant, and reality hit me in the face.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. 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 We gonna get there. We gonna get there. So when you came to the States, did you come to Connecticut? Were you in New York or?
Yeah, we came to Connecticut, and it's crazy you asked that because I asked my family that, like, why Connecticut? Because it
Mm.
remains, even back then, it wasn't no cheap place to live if you look like us.
Right. Right.
But what it was they moved to New York, and at that time, as illegal aliens, they went wherever the jobs were, and
Mm.
there were a lot of domestic jobs and those kind of things up here. And my aunt Hilda, who was like sort of the one that came first, the vanguard,
Okay.
she told somebody they knew worked up in Connecticut and
Mm.
Stanford. So a couple of people came in for jobs that they could get sort of under the table. And the minute that happened, and you send, and everybody else comes, and everybody gets the job, and then Stanford becomes the place where we, sort of built our American version of our family.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. So you went to the public schools in Stanford?
Oh yeah. Hart School,
Mm-hmm.
and then across the street at Clunan,
Coonan.
and
Yeah.
then up north and not High Ridge, Long Ridge to West Hill.
West Hill. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Absolute. Absolute.
And then from there, you went out to Iowa.
Yeah, from there I had a scholarship to UConn
Oh wow.
to go play ball.
Uh
But
huh.
Caribbean, man, the Caribbean families probably a lot like the Southern families, which I know you're part of.
Mm-hmm.
Mom and dad rule the roost until you move out. So
Right.
so
Right.
all of those little any kind of machinations you might have had about what you was going to do when you turn 18, if you still live in your mother father house, you got to kind of put those on breaks.
Yeah.
So the math, I started doing the math. I was like, if I go to UConn, my mother's still going to be right there, right
Mm.
down the road to Stanford. So Iowa called with a scholarship. I jumped all over that. So
Mm.
you know how destiny goes.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So that was the only criteria. I didn't want to be that close to home. I wanted to get away from home, and the culture shock almost killed me.
Oh, I'm sure. You said
Yeah,
Iowa, man. I remember
yeah,
a long time ago you had said that, you had told me that, but I was like, of all the places between Connecticut and Iowa, you chose Iowa.
yeah. Well, Iowa at the time I was probably about 280. I was
Mm-hmm.
playing offensive tackle and defensive end,
Mm-hmm.
offensive,
Right.
defensive tackle, and I was nuts about football. And to me, it was that was probably the first American dream I chased, was the idea of NFL, mommy, big house, take care of family kind of thing.
Right.
And
Right.
so I was all in. In those years, the Midwest was where most of the, like you're talking about the Roger Craig days, Tony Mandrich,
Oh
those
yeah,
days,
yeah,
Reggie
yeah,
White days.
yeah. That's
They,
big
they
time football out there.
they came from the Midwest,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
of the big linemen. So I followed scholarship out there.
And then ran into
Hmm.
and then
Yeah, yeah. It was one of those schools where Lamoni, Iowa, Grayson
mm,
College, it was Grayson University now, but it was 26 of us,
oh wow.
brothers. It was 10 from the East Coast,
Mm-hmm.
10 from the West Coast, and six from the sort of a sprinkling from the Midwest, Ohio, Wisconsin, Missouri, a couple of those other places. Six brothers from the one brother from Mississippi, Steve.
Okay.
And when we got there, it was one sister. She was from the Cayman Islands, and a brother got out there. You probably know him, Carl Vanderpool.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
he got out there. He was like a upperclassman, so they reported he was on the football team. I think he was a captain, so he reported earlier than us. And
Mm-hmm.
by the time we got out there, her and him were already locked up. So we all went from, I ain't messing with no white girls, to every night somebody disappearing. Like, yo, where's so and so go? Where's so and so go? We snuck off out the boys' dorm over somewhere in the girls' dorms, and
Mm.
by December, everybody had them a little friend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was the beginning of my trouble, let's call it.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. That trouble is gonna be 35 years old in August, bro.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
35 years old, man. 6'5", beautiful young man, beautiful, proud of him.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, out in Chicago doing his thing. So
Oh,
yeah,
good. Good.
yeah, yeah,
Good.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. So you came back to Connecticut afterwards,
Back to Southern.
to Southern,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
uh, and you majored in history.
History and studio art, painting.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Roommate, which with one of your frat brothers, Gregory Johnson.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
man.
Southern was cool. Southern was like the and you talking, so freshman year was 88, 89. So,
Mm-hmm.
you're talking coming back to Southern for that 89, 90, year. And
Mm.
you're talking, Rodney King, Reginald Denny, Fight the Power. So it was a lot of black consciousness going on. And at the time I was still Kennedy Cruz, man. I mean, yeah, I was still Kennedy Cruz. You
Mm.
Caribbean cat trying to figure out how to get by. I think I had like a little Duke curl on the top with the faded sides. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right. Right.
You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
That was
And
was in there, man.
yeah,
Back
so
then.
it was that kind of thing. And I grew up. My uncles were Rasta, so I grew up with an African consciousness. But I was just trying to fit in at this point. So,
Right.
but that campus, you had the brothers confront you, like, yo, why you ain't coming to the Black Student Union meeting? You
Right.
strolling across campus, and completely oblivious to what was going on. So that getting involved with that was like the wake up, if you will, and that led to the locks came, and
Mm.
then I kind of went all the way to the other side, and it was like walking around campus barefoot. With like I would take 2 yards of cloth, cut the hole. Remember them old time dashikis? Cut the hole in the neck,
Yeah.
drop
Yeah.
it over, and you got it like this, like a sheet on you, and I'm rocking campus and walking around barefoot. And cats started calling me Mandingo, and
Mm.
that's how the name. That's how
Oh,
that
okay.
that,
Okay.
that was the
Okay.
beginning. I had professors who thought that was my name, brother. So that when I went to officially change my name when I was leaving Southern, the Mandingo thing, it was I thought it was going to be like my uncles would call, because my name was Kenny. Mommy named me Kenny, so my uncles would call me Kenyatta.
Oh, wow.
So I thought it
Wow.
was going to be Kenyatta or something like that, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ayaba Mandingo was jumped out. I was like, okay, that's the name. That's the
Right.
name. So
Right.
that was the source of that whole, if you will, time. But I think it wasn't just me. All the cats that were in school at that time, and it was like literally. I remember on campus, you had some white cats that chased a couple of black dudes across the bridge and beat them up. And Southern was hot at one point. Cops was up there. It was a closed campus, and Yeah, it was. So
No.
that whole Rocky King thing spilled over into our classroom, and like the Imam Zaid Shakir, the Imam that did Ali's funeral a
Mm-hmm.
couple of years back. He was an international affairs teacher up there at the time.
Oh
So
wow.
I remember him literally having to part me and this white dude because we was fighting. We were getting ready to throw blows over arguing about Reginald Denny and that whole explosion of L.A. after the verdict.
Right. Right.
Yeah, the Simi Valley verdict. So those were the times. You know what I'm saying? So it was the me. Like if you would ask me when this me right here happened, that's the dude. Like the first time I realized I wanted to even try to share a poem I've been writing for a while.
Mm.
Um, was there and it stood up in front of a Black Student Union, and the reaction from like we used to have like 300 400 people in there every Friday.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
reaction from the group was like one part as a performer, and that there's like this thing that you can't the dopamine, the way it triggers everything on that part. But then it was
Mm.
also the fact that they were reacting to something I was talking about our plight as African people here.
Right.
To see that sort of solidarity, I was like, ooh, note to self.
Exactly.
I think I
Exactly.
might like the way this feels right here.
Right.
Yeah,
And it was absolute necessity that you
yeah,
continued to do it too.
yeah, yeah.
Because people
Absolutely.
needed to hear it.
Oh, brother, please. And I needed to. I needed to hear because for
Mm-hmm.
me it was, coming from an all Black country. There's a lot of things that I was just sort of dumb as in lack of knowing.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? And so Iowa gave me that. Iowa gave me that, in the good ways and the bad ways. Because even with everything I went through over there, what I met was more ignorance than racism. Like like
Mm.
like white
Mm.
folks that didn't know what Black people here felt like. And,
Right.
and and the
Right.
white girl who almost passed out when she realized that the bottom of my feet was this color because she'd never seen the bottom of a Black person's foot.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
that's something you teach. Like you come sit down, take your shoes off, and realize that the reason you can't tell the difference is because your tops, your flesh on top of your foot, your arch is so close to your bottom of your foot that you don't see the contrast. But we set up the same way, and that was it. I would let somebody touch my hair. That time I had the little flat top. Yeah, go ahead and touch it. And, oh my goodness, it's so spongy. That to me is like discovery. and I
Right. Right.
and I would put forward that that's probably the thing that the powers that be that don't want us to be one people in this country. That's the thing they pushed against the most, and that's why they kept us separate. Was
Mm.
because the minute we get together,
Right.
we're gonna realize that we're human beings first, and then the other stuff is like the gravy. You know what I'm saying? So
Exactly.
that's what I learned. That's what I met out there, and that couple what was going on, getting accused of rape and getting thrown in jail, and meeting people who were so sort of naively open and innocent to wanting to know and beyond what their parents taught them.
Wait a
That's
minute.
how I
Hold
came
up.
to
Pump
study.
the brakes. Pump the brakes. You got arrested in Iowa?
Oh yeah, that's the whole Mandingo story.
Wow.
So my oldest son Malik, he's mixed. I
Mm-hmm.
had, like I told you, we all ended up with a white friend, white girlfriend, friend girl, whatever the word is to use at that moment for a 19-year-old horny kid, and
Mm-hmm.
and we got pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
and we had Malik, and her father's way of dealing with that was to have me pull her out of school, had the sheriff arrest me. Basically he told the sheriff what went on, and they came and locked me up. And after
Mm.
about almost 60 days, they had to let me out because she ran away from home and came out here to be with my family on Custis Street.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and they had to let me out.
Wow.
Yeah, but that I went into that school, I went into that jail, Kenny Ethel George the Cruz, Caribbean dude trying to figure out how to get by, willing to put the Duke in my hair,
Mm.
willing to try a dose of Decaball, the steroid that Ben Johnson, remember Ben
Oh yeah.
Johnson?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the steroids that he got caught with. I tried a cycle of that, and it worked.
Wow.
My 40 went from and I remember I'm 270, benching probably three something,
Mm-hmm.
um, lineman, and quick
Wow.
from here to there, quick from here to there. But coach at the end of the season, coach tells me, great freshman year. I think you could be a starter next year, but my starting defensive end got to run a 4.75 or 4.8. And I know there are ways you can get there, but you have to be the one to look into that and be dedicated to it. So and he says that knowing that
Wow.
The
Yeah.
locker room was connected to his office. So you walk out his door, his office, and into the football team locker room. This dude's in there with steroids. And
Wow.
I was afraid of needles, so they gave me these little blue pills, man. And that first night, I was on the toilet with my head in the sink, calling them on the phone like, "Yo, what did you give me?"
Mm.
But what steroids is crazy because steroids don't make you bigger. Steroids repairs the muscles.
Uh-huh.
So I went from like legs. You can only really without being in pain, you could really only do legs once a week, maybe twice a week.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? With
Uh-huh.
steroids, you can do legs 3 days a week, 4 days a week. You can go heavy every day, and what you get is this recovery to the point where you got 31-inch thighs. And
Right, right, right.
and at 270 in a month, you go from in general like a 4.95 flat 40 to running 4.7s. Your coach is like, "Good job, the cruise." Like he don't know how you got there.
Right,
You know
right,
what I mean?
right.
So
Wow.
all of those things had already happened. You know what I'm saying? So I'm in there, and my boy Chris Bill. I'll mention his name on here because that's my man, still my man, 50 grand, love him to death. Of the Stanford Peels, the younger brother.
Yeah.
Him,
Yeah.
him and I went out there together on the plane out to Iowa. He's a
Mm.
monster athlete.
Mm.
He was my ace boom, man. He stayed in contact with me and checked on me on a regular, and he brought me the autobiography of Malcolm X
Mm.
and the philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey,
Wow.
and I drank those because
Right, right.
I was already a fanatic book reader. I read a lot of novels and that kind of stuff. This was like my first time reading like this type of, and that was the door opener. So I went in as Kenny Arthur George Cruz and came out not knowing that I was Mandingo because I hadn't taken the name was given, but I was definitely radicalized and definitely pissed off and definitely on some fight the powers things and pushing back at the system and that's where I wrote the first poem. I thought I was going to write my mother a letter because I lied to mommy, told I was staying in Iowa for football camp because black mothers, she would have just
Yeah.
unplugged and wanted to come live across the street from the jail so she could just be
Exactly.
close enough. So I told I was there, I was staying out there for football camp. But after like 3 weeks, I got homesick and I was started writing and this poem comes out.
Mm.
And to that point, poetry to me was like that thing white people did with the ascot and the smoking jacket sitting in the fireplace. How now, brown coward? You know what I'm
Oh
saying?
no.
So, and so that was the beginning of. So by the time I got to Southern, a year later, I had like a little book of stuff that I was ready to share.
Right, right.
Yeah, and that's like to sit here and think about it now, looking back, that's the place where Iyaba Ibo Mandingo came from. I would
Okay.
absolutely say that's when Kenny D. Cruz became Iyaba Mandingo. That's when the naive Caribbean kid became like this crusted over American immigrant. You know?
Man,
Yeah.
it's interesting because that was my next question. I was going to try to find out how you got into the poetry, and then you just laid it out for us
Yeah.
and stuff. But what about the fine arts, the painting and the sculpting? How did you get into that?
Well, that was there. That's always been on board because, like, with the grandparents, my grandmother was a singer, and she could draw like crazy. So you would have in the '70s, women would come with American magazines to the
Mm.
house,
Mm-hmm.
and they would be like, Miss Vanjie, I want this bottom and that top, like the bottom from this dress
Mm.
mixed with the top from this other dress. It'd be two different magazines. She'd take them out and she'd rip them, put them on top of it, and she'd draw it on a pattern paper.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And then
Mm-hmm.
so for the whole week she'd be drawing patterns, and next week she would cut them out, and the following week she would sit at the sewing machine with the pattern and the cloth and make them.
Wow.
And it was just like this methodical thing. And she never would send away for patterns. She would invent her things, and I would see her take like maybe she got a pattern with a long sleeve, she'd turn it into a cup sleeve, and all them things I still remember. And I was like
Mm.
her, because I was my grandparents' first grandchild. I was around the two of them, so and they were a couple, but they didn't. They were. My grandmother was 6 foot, man. And
Oh wow.
my grandmother had these right
Wow.
here. Yeah, so my grandfather lived across the street, a block away, and he had a
Mm-hmm.
tailor shop attached to his house. And so I
Okay.
went back and forth from the two of them, and watching he made suits, and he was them James Bond suits.
Oh
I
yeah.
think yeah, them clean John with we call gun mount. I think you guys call them high water. The high water, that
Yeah.
comes
Yeah.
we used to call them gun mount pants. And I watched him make those things and his to precision and his methodical sort of way he did things, and neither one of them taught me, like, as far as like sit down and take notes. He would say, "Boy, you're paying attention." And when he would ask me to iron a crease in something so he could sew it. He was big, so you didn't want to see one of those coming. So I avoided those. So I became a master ironer, and I would hem the bottom of the suits. So watching them create patterns for their work became like the beginning of. And then, I was always getting in trouble with mommy for taking her foil paper, aluminum foil, and making like worlds, man, like, cars and animals and people. And if you gave me any time that, or banging on something, those are the two things she was always telling me: to stop you wasting on foil paper and stop making noise. So those, that part, the art part, the visual art. I was the kid that would take the boxes and make a trap drum set, and take the cheese pan and cut it in half, and heat it up and beat on it and make the steel pan. I was that kid.
Wow. Okay.
So all the neighborhood kids would come for, and like I told you, I made the gun. I could make the gun holster.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that part was always on board. Always. I can remember getting in trouble with my cousin, my older cousin Jason, for tracing his taking his comic books and tracing people, and leaving the pencil marks on his book. Yeah. Yeah. I got better at that, so you know I was doing that. So Jay, when you hear this, yeah, I was still doing it, cuz.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you left Southern, then what did you do?
Well, left Southern, babies. I left Southern and reconnected with my high school sweetheart, and we had 3 kids. 93, 94, 95. So
Wow.
so yeah. So you blink, and and Malik, I had Malik, like, he stayed with me, and so in a blink of an eye I had 4 kids, and then I had a T-Ba, another son.
Right. I know a T-Ba. That's
Yeah.
I think that's the only one I know.
Yeah, and so by 95, bro, I was in 95. I was a 26-year-old with 5 kids.
Wow.
Married 3 years, working as a mailman, USPS.
Right.
Yeah, slams and compete, and that of course brought recognition. But here, you know how we do it here in the tri-state. So ours came like out of like clubs and brothers and sisters going at it. So people like Saul Williams and Jessica Moore and a lot of people, mums, and a lot of those people that became household names, they were on the scene doing their thing. Even Erykah Badu, who was living in Brooklyn at the time, would be at the Brooklyn Moon doing her thing, like just a regular sister doing her poetry. So that I went from being an audience member, an intimidated audience member, because somebody like Saul Williams, who by that time had a master's in theater, could get up there and bring a poem to life.
Wow.
And have your skin crawling. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
So that, you see that in the audience, and you got that thing. You don't know how to conjugate that thing into what Saul is doing up there yet. You sit and you kind of contemplate, and then you start imagining, and then you start practicing when you're in the shower, ain't nobody hearing you, and you start practicing in the mirror a little bit more, and you start coming off. I'm gonna tell you crazy. You remember Jamaica Joe?
Yeah.
That's the cat. That's the cat that made me. At the same time, I'm going to New York, and people are starting to do it in Stanford, starting to do the poetry thing. So I go to something that they had at the Rennie, Rocky and them spot, and the time Joe Forbes was still alive, bless his heart. Yeah. And I get on stage and I do my thing, and I'm reading. So I come off stage, and he comes to me and say, "Yo, man, like that piece. You write that?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I don't believe you." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you're reading it like if somebody give you something to read."
Oh, wow.
He said, "If it's your words, then you should own them. You should make me believe they're your words and make me believe you." He said, "Even if you got to take one line at a time, memorize it so you can do it like you have it, like you own it." And then a couple of weeks later, he caught me on stage doing it again. When I got off stage, that man held me. In the old school days when you was misbehaving, the teacher could grab you right above your elbow and give you that applied pressure that would just have you on your tippy toes following them. He hit me with one of them joints. Joe Forbes was a little cat to me, and he had me like that. He took me to the back and he scolded me, man. He said, "You have talent, and if you're not gonna use it properly, don't waste it up there." And that, I left there that night and started putting poems on the dome.
Right.
And the minute they went on the dome, I got it. Like the minute you do the poem after coming off book, as they call it, the minute you come off book, the first thing that happens is you realize that your hands are moving, and then you see your face moving, and you realize that you can bring the poem to life. So that was like the beginning of the thing. and of course the DNA, the fact that I come from people who are performers,
Right.
that was just waiting for me to open up to that. So then that kicked in. So then I come off stage and I'm like, yo, I really was just doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right, right.
out of body experiences. And then I started realizing how much, like the introverted cat that I was,
Mm.
how freeing it was. And then you couldn't keep me off that stage. Al. So
Wow.
every weekend I was in Brooklyn. Anywhere Brooklyn, from Brooklyn to Mass, from Brooklyn to Boston. Actually, you know what? From Jersey to Boston.
Okay. Okay.
South, and then and then back north, and then we started stretching out even more. Going to the national places like Rhode Island and out to Seattle and into Cali and into the Minnesotas and across the
Mm.
Midwest and then down south and into Mississippi. That just really took me to a lot of places. And the more I understood, like the power of reaching somebody when you're honest on stage and just opening up and allowing like that thing to flow through you,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I realized that what a powerful medium that was to tell stories. So I started just practicing and getting better at it,
Right.
and treating it like a tool,
Right.
and like and that discipline and wanting to be better. I want to. I mean, when we were young, when I'm younger, I remember saying I wanted to be famous.
Mm.
But Kim Kardashian is famous.
Right. Right. Right.
Monica Lewinsky is famous.
Right. Yeah. I don't
You know
need
what
the
I'm saying?
fame.
Yeah, I want to be
I'll take the
important.
money, but
Yeah, I want to be important. You know what I'm saying?
right. Right.
I want,
Right. Right.
yeah, I
Right.
want I want my grandchildren's and my great grandchildren's generation to be referencing me in their papers, the way we do with Baldwin and
Right.
Ellington
Right.
and those kind of cats.
Right.
Yeah, to extrapolate from the things I put there to go take that thing to the next place. That's what I want.
Mm.
That's what I want for So, but that comes with age and
Right.
maturity,
Right.
and that's why I think I'm able to tell, if you ask me now, whereas before I might have said I'm a painter and a poet and a sculptor, I'm a storyteller.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
In
Mm-hmm.
the old oral tradition of our West African ancestors,
Right.
I'm gonna tell, and I have a lot of different tools to tell it. So I haven't, since coming back from Africa and getting that clarity on what I am and why I am. I have not had writer's block. I have not
Wow.
had not painter's block, because I realize now, if the thing don't want to come as a painting and want to come as a poem, if it don't want to come as a poem, want to come as a short story. If it don't want to come as a short story, it want to come as a sculpture. But that's the mentality now. Whereas as opposed to feeling like I hit a wall and I
Mm.
got to freeze and I can't create now. And you know that
Yeah. Oh,
as a
definitely.
creator, that is
Yeah.
nothing worse than feeling like you're flowing, and then maybe the phone ring or your woman come in the room or your child cries,
Mm.
and then to go and deal with that and try to come back and try to pick back up on what felt like it was about to be the perfect sentence, be it
Mm.
be it a musical note or a poem or a line in an essay or a stroke of a brush or something, and when you come back, like it's faded and it's
Mm.
duller.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
And,
Right.
and you realize that training can help you to become very good at distilling the rest of the thing, so you could get that. But yeah, that the hunger, I think, is the biggest thing. Like it's gotta be
Right.
athletic. Yeah,
Right.
the way a
Right.
professional athlete go at it, it's gotta be all or nothing for you with that thing. And then I think that's what keeps you burning.
Right.
Yeah,
Now
yeah,
I know a brother told me once I had writer's block, and he said, "Well, write that."
yeah, no doubt.
Okay.
I told my students that when we do that, they say I don't got nothing to write. I said, so they write that. I got nothing to write. I got
Mm.
and maybe hey, there's a melody that I got nothing to write. 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 I said, that's do that, because
Right. Right.
then
Right.
you're gonna work on a different part of your muscle memory. And
Mm.
it's absolutely true. There's nothing cliche about, you know, the person that's gonna shoot the most baskets is the person that shoots the most baskets.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you, well, I can say for myself that from the time that I met you, you were polished. I mean, not where you are now, but you were polished at that point and stuff. Well, I shouldn't say when I met you. When I first heard your poetry,
Yes, yes.
you know. But now you've been arrested as a result of your poetry, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can you tell us what happened? With that?
Well, we talking about post 9/11 America.
Hmm.
And I guess at one point I realized that I'm the elephant in the room. This is what I do. I'm that person that will speak to that thing. And it's a very hmm, challenging role to accept, if you will. But I'm that, and I don't think it has anything to do with boldness. I think it has something to do with the fact that somebody got to say it.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, so I wrote the 9/11 piece,
Mm-hmm.
and backstory to that is before a month before that, I was in Mississippi, my first time in the deep South, and because I'm not from this country, I was blown away. Like in Antigua, you could drive in the Caribbean and you could see the sugar mills that they used to make the sugar that so many of my people died in. And
Mm-hmm.
we had sea cotton. Like my mother tells me stories of picking sea cotton as a girl, but
Mm.
not the way you guys had it up here,
Right.
plantations, acres of it and acres of it. So I remember the first time I went deep south and I drove and saw cotton in bloom. It blew my mind because it's an instant time machine.
Right.
Same way the sugar mills are in the Caribbean. So going south, the deep south, and experiencing that was my first time really seeing or feeling the supernatural.
Mm.
And I mean in the way our great grandmother would explain it,
Mm.
not the way Sci-Fi Channel would explain it.
Right. Right.
You know
No,
what I'm
I'm
saying?
with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, our juju, and it was on a planet we went to. Well, first we went to Mega Ever's house,
Mm.
and
Is that a museum now?
yeah,
Okay.
yes. So and we I don't know if you noticed, but uh, uh, she wrote the poem for my people. She lives across the street from him, diagonally across across the street from him,
Mm. Mm.
and she's one of my favorite poets. And shame on me for her name jumping out of my head right now. But the poem is an epic poem. It's long, maybe 8-9 minutes to read it. Maybe like 15 stanzas in it for my people, for my people. And she lives, and I saw Jolivet, the sister that brought us there. We went to Richard Wright's museum before that.
Mm.
Saw a lot of things about because he's from Jackson, Mississippi,
I didn't
and
know that.
so we're in Jackson, and so we go by down the street, and she goes, "Yeah, so and so lives there." Her name was just not gonna come in my head right now.
Mm.
Margaret Walker.
Okay. Okay.
Margaret Walker. She goes,
Mm.
she goes, "That's Margaret Walker's house." I'm like, "Oh, you got to stop the car. That's my poet. She probably wrote for my people in it. That is my poem." So we
Mm.
stopped, and I got one of them cameras. Remember a couple of years back they had the camera you could turn the screen this way, the video camera, and look at the screen, a big old screen with the camera attached over here. You could spin like that. So I had
Mm.
one of those numbers,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I'm get out the car and I'm filming. She pulls into this driveway across the street, and I'm so focused on her house that I get out and I'm not looking at nothing. When I get my load, when I get my fill, then I come back across the street with the camera and I'm filming them looking at it, and they all taking it in and talking. I was with two people from up here, and I host them now, and they're from Jackson, and I go, "Man, this house looks familiar. Where are we?" She said, "Boy, you in Mega Ever's house. You in matter of fact, you standing right where he was standing that night."
Wow.
And brother, I looked down and what I saw was blood.
Mm. Mm.
And Kasim, I put the camera on Kasim, and Kasim is gone. I put the camera on Jade, and Jade, you could see her going. I turned the camera back on myself, and I just started crying, man.
Mm.
Like the kind of cry that no grown man want to do in front of nobody else. And
Bruh,
the snot
I got
coming,
one of them. I'll tell you
yeah,
about it.
and you can't catch your breath, and
Right.
and
Right.
they patting you, trying to get your composure back and man up. They sat me down on the curb outside this man's house for about an hour before I could really gather.
Wow.
And I had requested to be taken to a plantation so I could experience that vibe. So I go to this plantation, and they got the remnants of the house and chain link surrounding it,
Mm.
and there's a big old plaque celebrating his name was something Walton, and how he had to leave his family to go and defend the South in the war, Civil War, and
Mm.
what a great man he was. And the house, you can see like the remnants are really preserved so much so that your imagination can fill out the rest of the house. And of course, when you look in the woods, you can see the remnants of the slave quarters too, which they're not going to preserve. They got the woods like taking those back over and hiding it.
Oh wow.
And I lost my cool, man. So
Mm.
Jolivet, the sister, she's like, "Brother, please, would you please relax? Since you got down here, your spirit been jumpy, and you please relax. These spirits down here is powerful." I step over the chain link and step into the middle of what would have been the middle of the house, and said, "If there are any African spirits still trapped in this place who need a body to escape, take mine and let's leave this godforsaken place."
Oh, dang.
So now she jumps us in the car. She's like, "Brother, you crazy?" So we shoot back in, and we got to get home before it's dark. So we pull into her driveway. And that morning we had just picked up a brand new Ford Taurus rental car,
Mm-hmm.
red, like candy apple, like obnoxiously red.
Mm.
And we get out the car, We go to the back, and brother, their handprints all in mud, like big, that Mississippi thick mud,
Oh yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
over the back of the car, bro.
Really?
Little hands and big hands and woman hands and older looking hands all over the back, and it's mud, and everybody looking at me, and nobody says nothing. And the next morning, we go into the school because we went down to teach and perform. So the next morning, we went to the school, and I'm telling the kids about high school, about my experience. One of the young ladies got up and said, "Well, sir, I'm not surprised because when that Walton man, when he found out that Lincoln was going to sign the Emancipation Proclamation, he took all the black folks on his plantation to the front of that plantation, and he hung all of them."
Oh man! Wow! Rather than to let them go free.
So that's two. We come. So we leave.
Wow!
We drive to. We leave. We stay there another couple of days. We go to Louisiana. We perform in New Orleans. We fly. We drive back to Mississippi, and we fly out. Maybe like a week later, we get home. We get home. No exaggeration, brother. September 9th, 2001, 2 days before 9/11. And so the morning of 9/11, I go to write my joint. All right, go to write when the plane is happening, I'm going to write my joint. I write trees. This poem, Trees, that I think you might know about a hanging tree in Mississippi that I met, literally like met the tree. And a couple of days later, I sit down to write the 9/11 piece. And the 9/11 piece is this really critical piece about America because I'm thinking about Mississippi at the time. I wrote it with the spirit of Mississippi in me. Right. And I do it like a year and a half later when right after America invaded Afghanistan in Stanford at the Ridge Forum, and people protested, man. People called in, wrote op-eds, and the government came and locked me up. And at the time, I'm still that now. But at the time, I was an American. I was still an American immigrant, waiting for my paperwork to be cleared. And I had changed my name, which my mother asked me not to do, of course. And all of that kind of created this perfect storm thing where they took that and the poem and said that under the and they took the being locked up in Iowa. They went and dug up that, even though they had to throw that case out. They went and got like the Polaroid and the handwritten sheriff report. It was one of them little Gunsmoke towns, and they would use that to hold me for deportation for 55 days. With Homeland Security. Yeah, but that again, you picking the cool, like I guess the jumping points, because that led to, like, when you think, wow, the darkest moments, and that was the darkest moments, because I know I look like I'm a tough dude, but I'm a pussycat, so jail ain't my cup of tea, and having to like go into that grr mode for 55 days, 24 hours a day being it's like it's work, it's hard work. You know what I'm saying? So
always got to watch your back, you gotta
and
look out for
yeah,
people. Don't know who you can trust.
man, so that whole experience and watching the way the community came behind me. And the morning I went to jail, I was 64th the 64th of 64 men, and I was second to last. I was the last person to see the judge. Wow. And everybody else. So I got to sit there, and they put us all in one big holding cell with glass windows and doors. And I got to watch man come out, over the course of about 3-4 hours that morning, one by one, go and see the judge, and then they come back out. Instead of coming into the cage with me, they put them in the next cage, which was the deportation, send home cage.
Wow.
So when you see 63 brothers do that, you figure, okay, it's just a matter of time before I'm over there with them. I go in and the exact opposite happened. People from my community, the principals, and all kind of people write letters, and even Dan Malloy wrote a letter on the top of that. I worked with his daughter. His wife had like would do a art in the yard thing. I worked with them for a few years and taught with her at a rape crisis center that she used to run. I taught over there with her for a little bit. So they both wrote really glowing letters. And the judge is like, this man should be is an asset to his community, and it doesn't make any sense for you to be in here. And he let me out. I come out, and Fox News is there to interview me, and I'm getting called within weeks. I'm getting calls from places like Japan want to do interviews, and bro, that literally,
wow,
yeah, that's how I saw the planet, man. So like, you know what I mean? Like I South Africa interviews, and that all led to invitations to come over and tickets and salaries, and that's literally every time I've left America to go and do poetry in those beginning times, it was because people wanted to hear 41 times or the 9/11 piece.
Right.
So it's like that I would have never. I couldn't. I would have never wrote that like that because I wouldn't write in the part where I go to jail.
Yeah, I know that's right.
You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah, yeah.
that was like the blessing in disguise, if that's the right way to put it. That's the beginning of that's how I from the thing like the things you've touched on. That's literally the leap in my book. That's the leap. You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I hate to ask, bro, but could you bless the people with a poem?
Oh, boy, you don't please don't hate to ask, brother. I ain't got a shy bone in my body when it
No,
comes to
I know that, but I mean,
that.
it's your livelihood. It's your work. It's what you do and
Well,
stuff, man.
we
So
call this perfect product placement. I like to call this.
nice.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'll do the piece I always do whenever I the first I'm asked to do a poem. It's our old people, the ones we owe everything to, the ones who had to clean people behinds and be their janitors and mop their floors instead of being these things that you and I get to be. So I always big them up first, and it's called Iguns, which is a Yoruba word for ancestors. It goes like this. He sits to me like a tired old warrior contemplating his youth, of battles lost and won and of his search for truth. Imagining myself as him and traveling back in time to see America in technicolored black and white. When Ku Klux Klan burn crosses in the night in response to our black demands were mute and southern magnolias bore dead, castrated, peculiar fruit. When Jim Crow sign showed us our water fountains and before Martin Luther climbed his mountains. Through all of that and countless more walked this old man who sits next door. With skin so full of melanin in the South must have been rough for him. He must have swallowed all his pride to take America in stride and still be here at 86. In spite of all the stones and sticks they used to try to break our bones and Hoover's taps on Huey's phones and all the blood that's spilling running from US manufactured guns and all the lying presidents. And all the times they raised the rent and all the blacks the war they sent to die for them and all the sellout niggas who lie for them. Through all of this old man walked and still to sit and hear him talk, his strength remains, his pride remains, his love remains, his stride remains. He died this year, but I will not forget. And I haven't forgotten you, mother dear. The wailing of your cries, it lived within my ears. I haven't forgotten the way it felt to only have your child for a while and fear the auctioneer becoming human steer. I remember your womanhood. You could pick 50 sachets of cotton. I haven't forgotten. You could face the whip. 3 months within a ship. Founding fathers invading hips, stealing your sons and daughters away. Today, tomorrow, African names become Smith. And black people seem to love it and are willing to sit and watch them colonize you, imperialize you, globalize you, and Tarzan movie trivialize you. But the warmness of your tropical womb I still remember. Sucking raw melanin from your breasts. Mount Kilimanjaro's peaks, my cheekbones, black skin, nose, and lips survived the ships and whips and founding fathers invading hips. So they see both of your faces today too. I'll make them remember what they did to you. Yes, brother, give thanks, give thanks, give thanks, give thanks. Once I do that, usually the butterflies are gone and it's off to the races after that.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that. It's interesting because I've heard that a few times, but each time I hear it, I hear something different.
Yeah. That's what for me, I give thanks to be able to be given the credit of writing that poem, because that's what I mean. I know beyond a doubt that our ancestors are alive, because I mean that poem, I remember getting it, living on Custer Street. It was an old cat that lived a couple of doors down from me. This is when I was at Southern at the time. I would come home and see mommy on the weekends. And one day I jump out the car and I would see him and I would always greet him the way you're supposed to greet an elder. One day he said, "Come here, boy, come here." And I went over and Mr. name was Mr. Barney. He said, "Boy, I love the way you move. I like how you deal with your mother. I like how you carry yourself, and you don't allow none of this nonsense out here that I see all these boys that look like they're your age doing." He said, "You keep it up, you boy. We watching. And we became close. I would always, spend a couple hours with him every chance I came down and sit and talk. And I remember the day his daughter came and knocked on the back door and told me he passed away.
Oh, wow.
And I went inside crying and heartbroken and sat down and out comes the first two stanzas. He sits to me like a tired old warrior contemplating his youth of battle lost and won and of his search for truth. Imagining myself as him and traveling back in time to see America in technicolor black and white when Ku Klux Klan crosses in the night in response to his black demands of mute and southern magnolias bore dead, castrated, peculiar fruit. And I said it fast like that because that's how it felt like it was coming out. Like I felt like I was racing to write it down. like dictation as opposed to creation.
Right, right,
You know what I'm saying?
right.
And that's how I know, because when I read that, then I'm laughing, because I'm like, I am not this clever.
Yeah,
I
you
am
are.
not this. You know what I'm saying? So you know what I mean. So you know what I mean. So it's like
Mm.
I give thanks for those, and I never take it for granted when they come like that. You know, because
Mm.
sometimes they come. It's hard to get them the whole full thing to come.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes like that, where you could see like the painting, you see the full painting, and you feel like you racing to get it down before it starts to blur, or you see the full poem or the full song, and the words are coming, and you realize you got to get them, and you fly, you almost racing yourself to write them down.
Mm-hmm.
It's magic. It's
Wow.
magic, bro,
Wow.
and that's our juju. And I really I think the difference between then and now is I've really learned to cultivate that, and give thanks for that, and make sure I feed my ancestors, make sure those things are, to me, are just as important as tool in hand, in the woodshed, if you will, grinding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
It's interesting. I listened to a story about Michael Jackson,
Hmm.
and Mike said that he, because he was an insomniac,
Hmm.
and so that's he ended up dying trying to
Hmm.
take that milk so he could sleep. Because
Hmm.
he said that he said that God would give him songs in his dreams,
Hmm.
and so he said that if he didn't go to sleep, that God would give the songs to Prince. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
I,
I very rarely remember my dreams and
yeah.
stuff. So my inspiration comes. I definitely feel like I'm inspired of God, but it comes during the daytime when I'm
Yeah.
awake. I don't get
Yeah.
anything when I'm asleep and
You
stuff.
know, you know when I get it, man, and I'll get driving,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
alone. Especially when it comes to poetry, the phrases will come. All of a sudden, I can hear them repeating
Mm,
the loop. Whether it's the hook or like the main part of the poem or the first two lines, I could hear them like on replay and replay. And sometimes I got to pull over.
I was
Sometimes
gonna say.
I got to call somebody, and call and say, I'm gonna call you. Don't answer. Let it go
Right,
to voicemail so I can leave this
right,
message. Right? Yeah. So
right.
that is I think you go from tripping out over that to realizing that that's how it comes. And when you see somebody like our heroes, like a monk,
Mm,
and you
mm,
watch you realize that he spent a lot of time in the ether, a
mm.
lot of time in the ether. And some people might say literally because of any substances, but he no, he was barely here, man. And a lot of those cats were barely here. Even Salvador Dali,
Mm-hmm.
barely here. They spent a lot of time in that creative world, in that creation
Right, right.
space.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Train.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, man,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Train.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm there. I'm there now. At this age, with my kids old enough, and feeling like as a young father, that these are really like my time now.
Oh
And,
yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
maybe in a selfish way. Maybe it's okay to say, in a selfish way, this is like my time to sort of revisit the 23-year-old cat that had these plans, and sort of reevaluate some of those things, and maybe hit play on some of those things again that I hit pause on for the last 2 decades. You know what I'm saying? And
We're
it feels
both on
good.
that same page,
Yeah,
brother.
it feels
Trust.
good, man. Yeah, it
Yeah.
feels good. It feels
Yeah.
good.
I used
Yeah.
to tell everybody all the time, you do what you got to do until you can do what you want to do.
Yes.
And so we're at that stage now where we can do what we want to do.
Yeah, yeah,
And
without
so,
guilt, without and guiltless.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly,
guiltless. Yeah, yeah, guiltless.
exactly.
Yeah, that was like the biggest part of the reconciliation with my father and I. Was realizing that um, that was my father was this beautiful, beautiful man from a South American country in Guyana that is considered part of the Caribbean. A
Mm-hmm.
world class athlete who had been basically lured to my country to come and play cricket because that's where the West Indian cricket team was based at the time. That
Mm-hmm.
was beating up on everybody. With that, Vivian Richards, who would be like Reggie Jackson, who is from my neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
my father played with these cats, and in a day when there was no such thing as HIV to worry about, is where you could find some penicillin for whatever you went and caught.
Right,
You know,
right,
he
right.
he was a typical '70s Caribbean man, and he definitely Rolling Stones a little bit too much. But to be able to kind of watch him mature and then mature myself, and start having cool conversations with him,
Mm-hmm.
it really really helped the art, because that was probably, other than my grandmother dying in my arms when I was 9 years old, that
Oh,
was probably the biggest cataclysm in my life, my young life, was my father splitting, coming, moving to America.
oh, right,
And,
right, I'm
and so
sure.
being able to kind of mend those things, and
Mm-hmm.
not in no romantic fairy tale kind of way, but to,
Mm-hmm.
like, like I remember changing my name, and at the time some of that was being pissed at my dad and not wanting to carry his last name,
Mm-hmm.
and having him say to me, boy, if I knew the things you know, I would have changed my name too. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
it
Wow,
really, yeah,
wow. Yeah, yeah.
that's a big deal. When you got three sons, and sons and fathers, sometimes it could be a very interesting situation. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
they get to a point where they evaluate you, and probably the most critical way you ever be evaluated.
No doubt. No,
You know what I'm
no
saying?
doubt.
And
Yeah,
and inevitably you come up short. But
yeah, yeah.
my youngest and I, my oldest and I, we're having that. We're coming like on the other side of that, where I finally said, son, you, bless your heart, you broke the mold. Your grandmother had me at 19. I had you at 19, and you're 34 years old, going on 35, and you don't have any children. You haven't had any, oopses, if that's the right way to put it.
Right, right, right.
And so you're already doing, you already corrected something, if you will, and
Mm-hmm.
you're very much about economic stability and your education, and all of those things to me are forward. And it's going to take you a little while to realize that we are evolving. But
Right, right.
trust me, we're evolving, bro. We're
Mm.
evolving.
No
So
doubt.
yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I got some rapid fire questions.
Mm-hmm.
What are your hobbies?
Uh. Wow. I got this habit of making most of my hobbies and my hobbies into stuff I do. I love to do it, and it become my thing. But
Mm.
hmm, I love gardening. Love
Mm.
gardening. Yeah, I
Mm.
love growing stuff. I love growing stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting because when I thought about the question myself, I was like, I don't know that I have any hobbies.
yeah,
I have so many things that I'm involved with
yeah.
that they're not hobbies. It's stuff that I just love to do.
Yeah, man.
Like
Yeah,
music and now I'm getting into the podcast thing
yeah, man.
and writing and and
Same here. Another thing
yeah.
is cooking. It's cooking, but like my cousin who's a master chef. Every time I go to his house, he's like, "Yo, you cook."
Mm.
So even that, I think I take, and I think that's the creative, because I put it. I think about my plate as a palette, a canvas.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So it's pretty and it's tasteful, and I'm thinking about I realize I think about the food, the
Mm.
combinations, the same way I would think about combining colors
Mm.
and tones. I'm thinking about the heat in food and seasoning in food, and like I'm realizing that applies. So, but if I must say, I would say cooking and gardening. Yeah.
Mm. You spend a lot of time in the kitchen watching your moms and your grandmoms.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
That was
same,
and help it. That was the
same.
thing, man.
Yeah,
Help it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, and
yeah.
that's how. And they didn't give you no recipes. They didn't say this how
No,
you do. You remember, because
yeah.
if your grandmother making something and she asked you for time, and you had something else, she's gonna smack you. So you became an expert
Mm.
by knowing, if she making brown stew chicken, I know I need this, and I got him like the way a nurse attendee might be ready for scalpel. I'm
Right,
handing it to
right.
you before the doctor even called for it. So that's
Got you.
when I sit up there and I start cooking now, and I channel her.
Mm.
That's
Mm.
I just remember everything she did, like the 2 pinches of cinnamon for the pumpkin fritters and that kind of stuff, just from
Right,
watching and remembering. Yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
What is the greatest accomplishment of your life?
My children.
Mm.
Yeah, it's crazy to especially watching them as adults. Five amazing human beings, man,
Mm.
that are loving and think about other people, and are really kind to their friends, and are super respectful. That yeah,
Mm.
that um I love thinking, realizing that I'm the first person in my family that has followed their dreams.
Mm.
I
Mm.
think that's important too,
Oh,
especially
truly,
especially
truly.
for the ones coming up after me. They can
Right,
see that.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
What's on your bucket list?
Um, my dreams, finishing my dream studio in Antigua, where I can
Mm.
I can spend the winters there.
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And visiting my father's country,
Mm.
Guyana. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Now you have a gallery now.
Yes, I live in one. I live in
Oh,
one.
okay.
Yeah, so it's three floors and a loft. Studios on the first floor, and then the other 3 floors uh, I live in. So it's right now, it's probably easily 100 and something pieces of work up between the sculptures and the different pieces, and it's cool because we did it because people would be saying, Iyaba, I love your work, but it's so strong. I don't know if I could live with it. So here you can see it in the kitchen, in the bathrooms, and in hallways, and you realize that you can absolutely live with the work. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Wow. What skill would you most like to learn?
Mechanic. And
Really?
for all the practical reasons, yeah, because mechanics rip you off.
You
So
almost got to be a computer engineer now.
yeah, man, yeah. Skill, man, yeah. But art. I'm gonna say art. Seriously, I'm gonna say art. There's something like the thing I'm probably gonna want to try. I've been glass blowing has really been kind of yelling, screaming my name lately. Glass blowing and like ceramics, like plates and these kind of things, been really, yeah, been calling my name.
Yeah, one of my boys is into that. Mark Rosenbaum. He's down in New Orleans and stuff.
Hmm.
He's got a studio down. He's been there for years and stuff, and he's doing really really good work.
Hmm.
He's from Stanford as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
Rippewam.
okay, okay.
Where's the coolest place that you've traveled to?
That's a good one right there, boy. Um, it's a tie between Namakwalan in South Africa,
Mm-hmm.
Azania.
Mm-hmm.
Namakwalan is where the Khoi San people come from,
Okay.
up in the mountains. Woke up one morning thinking that it was fog, and the old man said, "No, boy, you are in the clouds."
Oh wow.
So that was cool. And then
Mm.
Calabar, Nigeria, which is like I went and stayed in Lagos and Lekki, which is where Burna Boy and all the millionaires live, because
Mm-hmm.
the people I stay with are well off. But
Mm.
then I wanted to go. I met a Professor Cat online, and I wanted to go see him. He lives in Calabar, which is like Africa pre-white people. So you get this. I got to see the Africa we come from.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
and that was magical. So those are my two favorite places.
What makes you unique?
Um, wow, that's a good one, bro. What makes me unique?
Because you
Uh,
are unique, bro.
yeah, yeah,
You have to
yeah,
know that.
yeah.
Because I don't know. I'm honest, man. I've never met anybody like you. I don't know anybody like you. You know what I mean? Because you're a definitely unique individual, and I don't want to say and why until you after
Not,
you answer the question.
um, um, why am I unique? Because I wake up every day with the most earnest quest to embrace every part of me,
Mm.
all of me. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I grew up a Christian, so I remember the Bible well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then one of my favorite stories is a story of the master of the house and the servants, and he even the money is even called talents.
Mm-hmm.
And he leaves and he gives them all talents,
Mm-hmm.
and he comes back and the one that buried it in the ground thought he was going to get the best prize, and he got the most scolding,
Right.
whereas the one that multiplied it many times over, if there's a I want, when this dance is over, when I close my eyes on this realm, to have exhausted all of the gifts.
Wow.
And I think and I mean that with everything. So
Right.
do I want to be the best sculptor? Do I want to be the best poet? Yes. Do I want to be the best writer? Yes. Do I want to
Mm.
be the best actor and playwright? Yes. Am I going to get there? No, but every time I get on stage, I tell people now, especially since my sister passed away, and she was like, even though she was my little sister, she was my big sister. She'd be like, Ken, no, F that, Ken, go get that, Ken, go get that. So to have that energy in my head now, where I
Mm-hmm.
can't tell it shut up, is crazy. So I tell cats, man, if you want some of that stage, don't let me go first. Because
I
I'm a
know that's
burn.
right.
I'm a burn all of it. And I ain't gonna leave you no string up there. You're gonna be up there balancing on nothingness. Don't let me go before you. So it's
Right.
that.
Right.
It's
Right.
that I'm hungry, being I cultivate the hunger. I feed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I want to be great. I want to be great at this. I want to be great I want to be great.
Right.
Yeah. And I think admitting that makes me unique.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I said that I never seen anybody like you. Well, on a couple of different fronts, artistically, in
Hmm.
terms of the work that you do and the amount of work that you do,
Hmm.
and the fact that you're just fearless with it. you know. And it's like, it's got, you got that. I mean, you cool with everybody, but at the same time, it's like, if you're not, then that's on y'all. Because
Yeah,
I'm focused and I'm doing what I got to
yeah,
do.
yes,
You
yes,
know.
yes, yeah, yeah. I see my people. I see my people in me. My grandmother was the type of woman. If she told you, she said, "Boy, I'm gonna like you." If you came back, if you walk by the house next week, she gonna remind you what she told you last week. Me not
Mm.
like you. If you came by next year, she's gonna be like, you remember we tell you last year, boy, me not like you. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
I
Right.
that sort of bottom lineness, you know what I'm saying? Like I
Mm-hmm.
get you. I see who you are. And so if I gotta deal with you, just know that I'm gonna deal with you knowing who you are. And I'm not gonna that's not gonna alter. And also, coming from I come from powerful, powerful black women, man, 6 feet tall women that my great grandmother carried brass knuckles. My grandfather was afraid
Wow.
of her. So I come from that, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Right. Right. Right.
I'm not if I know I'm in the right, then I'm going to do that. Like one of the reasons I was a little late with you today after leaving with Cena in the same gallery, they had they got murals going on up here in town. They're beautifying the city
Mm-hmm.
slash gentrification. They're putting all these murals, and they're importing professional muralists to do this, which is great for gentrification, but it doesn't. The reason for a mural, the origins of a mural is as a teaching tool. Like when you talk about the Diego Rivera's and those people in Mexico, he he used the mural as a way to teach a country who was 95% illiterate about
Mm.
their history by
Wow.
pictures. and
Mm-hmm.
and and that's supposed to be the point. So I walk in, everybody's like, "Oh, Ayaba's here,"
Yeah.
and
Right.
yeah. So I go, I gotta go, but I wanted to come and sit for a second, and respect you guys, and then get an opportunity to ask you just one question. And yes, I'm gonna leave right after, but I want to know this. It's been a year, and I've been in Connecticut now 44 years, and for most of that time, I've heard Bridgeport being talked about in a very derogatory way, especially when it comes to the black folks. Like, don't go to Bridgeport because fill in the blanks.
Right.
And I said, now here's been a year and a half of murals being put up. There's over 20 murals in this city. Some of them even been done by black people, but none of them speak to black people or about black people or the history of black people. And the history of black people in this town is deep and longer than
Mm.
anybody else. And I think it's a tragedy that you guys don't see how unfair and unjust this is for you. There's everybody else
Mm.
seems to be putting as a subject of these murals. And I
Wow.
just listened to you talk about how important the backstory is to these murals. And it's blatant, very blatantly. You guys have the Freeman sisters here. Lewis Latimer lived here. At one point, the
Oh
Freeman
wow. I didn't
sisters,
know that.
yeah, the Freeman sisters, who were at one point were the two of the richest behind next to P.T. Barnum. They were the richest people in Connecticut. Their
Mm.
homes is a block away from the house up here. You got to come up.
Okay.
I think that they just declared. I know they just declared them national sites. So
Mm-hmm.
they're now getting the funding to bring them back to their original look of what they looked like 100 years ago. But you could see, you can go and read, like in the archives, letters from the Freeman sisters to Marcus Garvey, talking about this enclave they found here in Connecticut.
Mm.
And you think about strategically what we're talking about. We're talking about right here on the south, right by the beach, right behind
Right.
UD.
Right.
So you're talking about they were thinking about a place with a port where you can get ships coming in and back. They were thinking completely. I mean, past what we thinking about right now, if you want to talk
Right.
about it. And they invited different luminaries. So Lewis Latimer was one of the people they invited. So, and he lives, actually he lived right around the corner from their house over here. So you could see they named the street Lewis Latimer Way now. It's right over
Wow.
here, right where you see all the towers. When you're coming up 95 and you see all the smoke, right back there in
Yeah.
that area over there, right in that area over there.
Okay.
And it to for them not to realize how important it is to celebrate that.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? This is Thomas Edison came right here to Bridgeport and recruited him to come work with him in Jersey and help him fix his Christmas tree light and turn it into a bulb.
Mm.
You know, or his flashing, because he made something that was just flashing.
Right.
Latimer was the one that made the
Yeah. The
filament that
filament.
kept,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, and he was right here. That's why they got his statue outside of the city hall downtown. He was a Bridgeport resident.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Yeah. I
to
didn't know
not,
that.
yeah, I'm sitting there and these guys, of course he says what they always say in that moment when you put them on the spot in front of people. That's a great thing. Thank you for asking that question. And that's something we're going to focus on, because now they're moving out of downtown. They're coming into like the neighborhoods, like the
Mm-hmm.
South End, which was traditionally black and oppressed, and downtrodden, and on the East Side, again, more black and Puerto Rican people. So I told them I'm going to watch and see what happens. I don't know if I'll submit anything because you guys have rejected all of my submissions so far,
Oh
because they're
wow.
putting them on private buildings,
Right. Right. Right.
and they're claiming that the building owner is only a part of the decision making process. And I'm saying to him, I don't know. I get it that he owns the building or she owns the building, so they have a right. But what if they're a bigot? What if they're a pig? What if they're sexist? You know what I'm saying? And instantly, the subject matter, they're going to be in charge of what gets put on their building. So you guys it's got to be if it's public funding that's doing this, it's got to be a different criteria you guys use. So
Right.
realizing that I'm the dude that's got to say those kind of things, I don't run away from that, because
Right.
that directly affects me as an artist, but also as a teaching artist in the town, where the place, it should be somewhere I could take my class to go see things that make them smile. You know what I'm saying? So those kind of things, realizing like how that can go from your studio to the political realm, in the matter of a question or something going down in your area, is the part that I think also keeps me not in politics, because I don't, I think that's nonsense. I think but the voice, the town crier, if you,
Right. Right.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who is your hero?
Yulen Adina Tung. That's mommy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Yulen Adina Tung. Firstly, Yulen Adina Tung is she had me at 19, and she's awesome. But I have the traditional heroes. I love Malik Shabazz, Malcolm. I love Stephen Bantu Biko. I love
I had a professor at Southern. I'm a grad at Southern as well. I had a professor there that was Biko's professor, and was exiled from South Africa for educating South Africans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing poet, man.
Yeah.
Amazing. Biko, amazing poet. These are the things you get. I think about when you think about the things that we were robbed of. Biko, magnificent poet. Eldridge Cleaver, Soul on Ice, brilliant. You think about the things we could have gotten if they didn't have to come be warriors.
Exactly.
Malik Shabazz was probably one of our biggest intellects ever that we're ever going to have. We think about what he became with the schooling that he didn't have. Like, what if what does he look like with schooling and a master's degree and a PhD, and so that the things were cheated. Martin Luther King, with his brain, and all of the people were robbed of because they had to put down their pens and go pick up swords and get on battlefields and be murdered, for their right to be, kind of thing. I feel compelled, B. I feel, it's nice to say that I'm an artist, but I feel like it's my duty, like it's a job, When I was younger, Jordan dunk a basketball, buying mommy a house. But now at this age, I realize that, and as a historian, if you want to know what the Renaissance was like, either the Harlem Renaissance or the European Renaissance, you go check the art out. If you want to know what World War II was like, you check the art out. The music, the poetry is like, we get to smuggle in the truth inside of in the lyrics of our songs, and in the notes of our songs, and in our poems, and in the paintings. You get to see the social norms and the sexual mores and all the different things that happen. We are the truth sayers. Understanding that it gives a great sense of pride, because we are the poet whose resonates. Like, who was the greatest athlete during Michelangelo's time? Who knows? But we know Michelangelo.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We know Raphael, and we know Modigliani, and we know all the different people who were of significance that in the arts. Langston Hughes is just as important to Black struggle as Malcolm X, James Baldwin, to, you know what I'm saying? You can go right down the line and hear the same message. But one is an artist where we are allowed to, he's just an artist. You know what I'm saying? And we get to kind of, and that, to me, that's what the jail thing did for me. The government was that I don't want to be. I think martyrdom is dumb. I do. I think martyrdom is I call it the Jesus syndrome. Your life, your death will have significant. No, it won't. We'll get a watered down version of you, somebody who's compromised as a new leader. So I think martyrdom is dumb. I think staying here and being like a walking, living example is the right way to do it, and in the right way, so that you don't allow bombast to get you ending up in the middle of a bullseye.
Right.
And you stay alive, because I think we need alive leaders, and not ones that are always talking about physical confrontation, but the ones that are talking about practical confrontations. Things like realizing that it's okay to go to another place, another part of the world, and build a home, and you can still live in America. But to think that you could live here 365 every day of your life and come out on the other end psychologically okay
Mm.
is, I mean, look what it did to Malcolm and Martin and all of our heroes.
Yeah.
It gets you, and Eldris and Bobby and Huey,
Yeah.
and it gets to you. So
Yeah.
some downtime is important, man. And
Yeah.
and advice, paint, play, play a instruments, something, and not to be a professional like we are, but to download. I don't think nobody carries around more angst and pent upness than black folk, poor
Oh,
folk.
truly.
You know what I
Truly.
mean?
Yeah.
It comes out in really nasty ways. So I'm 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 that. I'm about that, man. And I consciously, like I said, started teaching younger brothers and sisters because I want to get them pre the indoctrination,
Mm.
so that when it comes, they have like a balance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
spent 37 years doing that
Oh, I
same
know it,
kind of
brother.
thing, brother.
Soldier, man.
Yeah.
You got your stripes, brother. Trust me.
Yeah.
I'm glad you jumped out and still got you.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, man.
a lot of people ain't got nothing left when they're done, man. My uncle
Exactly.
retired. Uncle lived about 18 months after he retired. It was a post
Yeah. And out of
was
here.
a bus driver, big 6'6", giant of a man,
Mm.
big old voice, just turned on to a whimper. You know what I'm saying? And
Wow.
18 months after retiring.
Wow.
Yeah,
Man, that's tough.
that's
That
that.
is tough.
Yeah, that's a bag of goods that we don't need to buy no more,
No,
brother.
no,
Yeah,
no, no,
yeah,
not at all.
yeah.
What's the most important decision you've ever made? Excuse me.
To quit my job in 1995 as a mailman with a wife and 5 young children.
Wow.
That's my last job. Last time I had a job. The last time I
Mm-hmm.
punched the clock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you that's my start date for this right here. This journey right here.
Wow.
Yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
was. I remember going home and saying to my wife at the time, love, I don't know if you're gonna divorce me, but I quit my job today. And I remember walking in. So then I guess before I came home, then it was standing in front of my mail-in shit, putting up mail,
Mm-hmm.
and realizing that I hadn't read a book or drawn anything in about 2 years, and walking into the office and saying, Marco, I need a pink slip. He's like, well, what's going on, man? What do you got them kids? I know you want some overtime. I said, no, man, I need a pink slip. What you mean? I said, because if I quit, I'm not gonna get unemployment. I need unemployment. So since you're my boy, I need you to give me a pink slip, please. I said, but what's going on? I said, when I was a little kid, I didn't say I wanted to be a mailman when I grew up, man. And I'm a mailman,
Mm.
and I'm scared,
Mm. Mm.
and he gave me the pink slip and I quit.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So that's
Deep.
probably it there. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
What's your favorite song? And who's your favorite group or singer?
Um, well, it's a tie. It's either Around Midnight, Monk,
Mm.
or Love Supreme, Train.
Right. Train.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And why? Because because Train he was trying to become love, and he was
Mm.
like, I read about it after hearing Love Supreme and feeling the way it pulled me up into the air, the
Mm.
ascension, and then
Mm-hmm.
realizing that it happened like that because he was doing that on purpose.
Mm.
Like he was literally trying to levitate off the ground with that song. You can hear it. It's like he's out. You know what
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
saying? So
Yeah. Yeah.
and then around midnight, because to me the space, like I don't think nobody has ever used space the
Mm.
way Monk used
Oh,
space.
no doubt.
And as a poet, that tries to go with music, if you don't understand that, don't
Mm.
even bother. Just keep doing it a cappella. Because
Yeah.
if you don't realize that the space is the only place you can get in with a band as a singer and a poet is in them spaces.
Right. Right.
And that those two things, because and to me, musicians were like my heroes, man. When it came to like the growth component,
Mm.
yeah, musicians were the heroes I fucked with, because
Mm.
they really allowed you to, like, you saw the growth like instantly,
Right.
like a Mingus or those kind of cats. You saw like the growth and the way they like devoured challenge.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And
Mm-hmm.
and for better or for worse, like you heard the fault, you heard the mistakes too, and but then you would hear like the fix right away kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? So I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Wow. That around midnight that's a haunting tune. It's, I
Woo!
like Miles Davis version of, well, yeah, Miles Davis version of it, where he's playing with that muted trumpet and stuff, and it's
Yes.
just
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah.
it's
Oh yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah. that adds atmosphere to that.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
could you could actually see like the trench coat with the collar pulled up and the fedora pulled down and the street light and the shadow against the wall. Yeah, you see the whole thing with Miles's version of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah,
Bow down to be doom.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Dum,
yeah.
dum, dum, dum,
Yeah,
ding, dum. Yeah,
yeah.
man.
The
Yeah.
pacing, man. Those cat.
Oh,
If you serious about any craft, and you learn you learn the overlap. You learn how art becomes painting becomes. Like I remember being doing the acting thing, and they Google you. They Google each other and down there in Broadway on Broadway stage there.
mm.
So I'm out to lunch with the director. I'm doing a two-person play, and I'm out to lunch with the director. This is my first time doing somebody's work that's not mine.
Oh, okay.
Another actually she teaches her name is Deb Margolin. She teaches theater at Yale.
Oh,
So
wow.
she wrote a short and I got the lead.
Mm-hmm.
The Expenses of Rain was the name of the piece, like a 15-minute short.
Okay.
And so I go in for the audition. I know nothing about it. Like somebody walked up to me at the end of one of my performances and asked me if I'd be willing to try it and be. I said sure. And so I go to it that following week, and I get they told me for a callback. I go to the callback. I didn't know what the hell a callback was. I get the role, and then maybe 2 weeks into rehearsal, I'm stumbling a little bit. So we're at lunch, and she's googling me right in front of me. She's like, "So you're a painter? Okay, wow, I love your work." Well, so we go back to rehearsal, and we rehearse it, and she goes, "Iyaba, no, not orange, red." And the light bulb was like,
Wow.
you know what
Wow.
I'm saying? So that
Right, right.
a couple of months later, we're at a play together. She took me to see some other play, and I lean in and I go, "So Barb, so the stage is the canvas, and the actors is the paint, and me as a director, I'm the painter." She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh." So then I'm like, "Okay, I could do this playwriting thing because then I get it because then I could take that and overlay that on top of what I do." And the
Mm-hmm.
same thing and I learned that from hearing the way like when you listen to Giant Steps
Mm-hmm.
in the album, like the full album.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And at the end of it, you hear like the 6 outtakes, like the other versions of Giant
Oh,
Steps,
right. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
bro. You literally hear him trying.
Mm-hmm.
You hear the different works, man, and it's like the pacing, and then the melody changes, and I'm like, and this is me not knowing music
Mm-hmm.
in the way I do now, like from indulging a lot more. But I could understand even then. I could hear what he's doing, and I'm going, yeah, okay, I could do that as a poet.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And like you
Mm-hmm.
literally hear him trying, and you can hear the parts when he's playing. Like I teach my students, like the greatest tool you can have as an artist is your ability to listen, and like not with your ear only, but with all the senses, like to all of like. So a lot of my painters now is just listening, man. Like with the color compositions I'm working on now, because it is a composition. I'm listening to the color, like what color wants to be next to the other color, and what
Mm-hmm.
color what color does this color want on top of it. And you can't make that decision. You got to back up and listen
Wow.
to the feeling, to the smell, to the sight of it, to the
Right.
hearing of it, to what that color, you know what I'm saying, what it's calling for. And that to me is where the practice comes in. Like you can be skilled, but if you're not willing to do that, to learn that part of it, then you're just gonna be skilled. You're just gonna be an old skilled dude who could
Right. Right.
who
Right.
could draw pretty good, but you ain't gonna never break through that thing and do
Right.
something that cracks somebody's head open when they see it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? That should be the goal. The goal should be to make somebody stop.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me your life story in one sentence.
I am the hopes and the dreams of the slave.
Wow. It's a blessing too.
Yeah,
Truly a
yeah,
blessing, man.
yeah. You made me think. That one made me think about it, and I think I'd say that even if you gave me time to think about it. I think that I know that's what I am. I
Mm.
know that if I was alive in those times, the fuel would have been knowing that I could project everything forward.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I feel like I feel my job. I feel I caught that. And I'm so thankful and so grateful for them for choosing me and so when I pray for that. I pray for more. When I'm backstage, I tell my grandfather, who was a clown, a natural clown, and a mimic, or and he could do voices. I say, Granddad, let's go play. And when I feel him, I don't get in his way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Bro, I appreciate you more than you know, man. There was so many different things, so many different ways this could have went, and so many different questions that I had. But I mean, we've been doing this for a minute, so I just want to let you know that I appreciate you. I thank you so much, man, for coming on the podcast.
Oh, brother, my pleasure. And I look forward to doing this again. We got a lot of cool things coming up. And I'll just drop it like a little quick hint of it in September. And I definitely want you to be a part of it. In September, we're going to be doing a retrospective of my work here at Housatonic. I don't know if you know, but they have one of the most amazing art collections anywhere in this country.
Really?
Yeah, and about 100 years ago, one of those rich families, went to Europe trying to, look like the old rich folks, and they would try to go to all the Dalis and the Picassos and buy the work directly from them, but they couldn't afford the A side, so they bought a lot of B sides. But now you got Housatonic got more Picassos than MoMA.
Wow.
Yeah, so the director there now is a Yale graduated PhD, and she's a Jacob Lawrence nut. So the new series of paintings I did is called Awi Journey. It's a story of Caribbean people traveling to North America, which is Europe, and Canada, and here in America and Europe, during the entire span of the 20th century. And August Wilson is another of my heroes. So he did a play for every decade of the 20th century. So I combined Jacob Lawrence, my two heroes. So it's an ode to Jacob Lawrence, because he did the story of the Negro migration, your story, your people's story, from traveling from the south to the north in the 40s and 50s. So it's an ode to him and August. So I did 61 panels. He did 60. I did 61 from 1908 to 1999. And so we're gonna debut that, and then also have a retrospective of some of my I guess my most important pieces. So that's at 55, that I would call that, sort of, let's call it the high point of the beginning of the sort of the midpoint of my career, if you will. And I'm really proud of it, and I think it's going to be a really, really big deal. So I definitely, maybe around that time or when the book comes out, man, bro. But I enjoyed, man. So I would definitely love to come back up and chop it up with you some more.
Please. Cool. Definitely, bro. Definitely.
Cool.
How can people contact you, on social media?
Well, it's Iyaba Ibo Mandingo. Again, having a name like Mandingo, you type it in, I'm going to come up. Iyaba Ibo Mandingo on all of the different platforms. Iyaba Ibo Mandingo, all the platforms. Iyaba website, Iyaba Arts, IYABARTS at Gmail. .com, IyabaArts.com. And everything else is just my name. Cool.
All right, brother. Blessings on you, man. I
Bless on you too, brother. I appreciate you back, brother. Peace and light to you, man.
And you as well.
Be well.
All right, you too, man.
Peace.
This has been another episode of In the Black of My Mind podcast. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share. Until next week, y'all be blessed.